I guess I'll start by thanking the sponsors of the event and James and so forth. I'm pleased to be here. Especially since I'm just days away from my retirement. So that's a cause for celebration for certain. So a lot of things to that I can speak to today. Let me just start by saying that I am not a scientist. I'm not a physician. I'm not an engineer. So I'm a business person, and that's the filter in which I see things. And certainly I've got opinions and takes on things like user interfaces and how people live with these devices and what they're looking for in these technologies. So the Axonics story is I think a little bit interesting because this is really dates back to 2013, and I was giving a talk just like this one, in fact, at a Frost and Sullivan event. And I had just concluded a sale of a renal denervation company to Boston Scientific, and it was one of these quick deals, less than 2 years, 25 million in and 200 and something million dollars cashed out. So people were curious about how do you do that? What's that story about? And then someone just asked me at the end, like, what are you excited about in the future? What's next? And I said, well, I'd like to not be working as hard, but I got divorced and now I need to go back to work. And I'm really keen on the area or this category of neurostimulation. I just felt that, this is now 11 years ago, 12 years ago. I felt like this was a technology whose time had come. And there were, a lot of interesting things that were happening at the time. The SCS market was leading the parade, clearly. That was the highest revenue category, if you may, and so on and so forth. So anyway, so that was the notion. I want to get into neurostimulation. And, I think that the Chinese acupuncture chart really made an impression on me because it was interesting. You look at that chart and you go, oh, here's all the neural targets. It's just laid out, right? Some of them are hard to reach. You may need to implant a lead or something to get to the right target. But in general, this is a concept, I think, clearly whose time has come, but it's been around for a really long time. The idea of stimulating nerves to get a clinical effect. So that was the impetus, if you may. What the hell to do with, and which direction to go, of course, was, clearly a jump ball and required a lot of time and effort and analysis and so forth. So given that, I'm going to talk about science and technology, I want to talk about a little bit about the company and our story, but more so some cautionary tales, I think, which I would like to speak to. So with Axonics, first of all, if you're going to go into a space and you're going to compete once against one of the big players in this industry, whether it's Medtronic or Boston Scientific or Abbott now, you just got to be a little careful. Okay, you got to be careful because they have a lot of people that are really interested in, let's say, learning the great details about what you're up to, under the guise of, we're considering the possibility of acquiring your technology. We're considering the possibility of acquiring your company, even though you may only have a few people and some interesting technology. So that's the first cautionary tale, because in 2016, after we had developed the product, gotten CE mark, James mentioned the notion that back in the day, all the way back in the day, in 2016, you could get a CE mark on a product. Today, good luck. If you're not running a full-blown clinical study, you're not going to get CE mark, even if you have products that are in the market and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go down that path. Thank God the FDA has turned into an agency that you can communicate with on a regular basis. They really want to help you be successful, get your products approved, and give you guidance. They're going to tell you exactly what to do. They're not going to tell you that, but if you say, what about this, what about that, they'll give you the feedback. So nobody should be afraid to go talk to the FDA. I think that's been one of the secrets to our success. So in any event, we shared everything we were up to with Medtronic in 2016. This is factual. It's in the public domain. It's part of a transcript, a record. You could read all about it because these lawsuits are public. And, you know, you can read all about the dirty tricks and all the other nonsense that went on. But the bottom line is they came, they looked, they learned everything that we were doing. We opened the kimono, we showed them everything, and then they disappeared because they had different corporate priorities. Be careful of that word, okay? And then they just waited and just sat in the bushes, so to speak. And then as soon as we treated our first our first patient commercially, they filed a intellectual property lawsuit against the company, alleging infringement on 7 different patents. Okay, so that really sucks, right? You know, I mean, you can put that in your quote book now. And so, getting sued really sucks, because you know what they're counting on is it's a distraction. They're counting on people who haven't been there before, who don't know what to do, and so on and so forth. They're looking to freeze the market. They're looking to chill competition. That's the objective. Okay, let's be clear. It's not about protecting their intellectual property rights. Okay, because the fact is, every company in neurostimulation, the big companies, they're infringing on each other's patents left and right, but they won't sue each other because they all have nuclear ballistic missiles. Okay, and it's assured self-destruction if you go down that path. So they don't sue each other. Notice. You haven't seen any headlines. Oh, Medtronic suing, Abbott. Not happening. Okay. Yeah, sure. We've heard Boston sued Nevro. Okay. Yeah, they were small. We pick on them. So that's the game. They're going to pick on the smaller companies, and they're going to try to distract you from the business at hand, and they're going to try to drain your resources. Okay. Which I'm going to talk a lot about resources being defined as not people, but money. Okay, and how important that is. So anyway, what happened? Well, we're not fools, we're experienced. Okay, first thing you do, you hire the best lawyers you can find, and you go to the patent office, and you file all your paperwork to say what's up with these patents. I mean, here, did you look at this prior art? Did you consider this, and so on and so forth? And we basically knocked the living hell out of their patent portfolio over a 5-year period. Now, with the trial, just to give you the headline, 5 years, right? We got sued November 2019. Was 5 years almost to the day, and we spent $30 million defending ourselves. Okay, and what do we get in return for that? Okay, I can pound my chest. All right, hey, we beat them at their own game, but that's a lot of money to piss away for no reason. Okay, so who wins? You mentioned something. Who wins? We didn't win. We lost $30 million. Okay, now we weren't found to be infringing. By the way, 8-day jury trial. I got to tell you this. Okay, 8-day jury trial, 9 jurors in Orange County, California, in the federal courthouse with Judge Carter. Quite a famous judge, this guy. He wrote some opinions about the Trump and the Orange County lawyer guy. So anyway, serious guy. 8-day trial, 9 jurors. They deliberated for 1 hour. They came back and said, no, there's no infringement. Here's this nonsense. Okay. Imagine that. All that, so anyway, but we prevailed. I get nothing in return. Okay. Like in America, anybody can sue anybody for any damn reason, and there's no recompense if you lose. If you sue somebody and you lose, there's no the party on the other end gets nothing. This is the big problem we have in America. Okay, everybody's sue happy for this reason, but this one was about the competition and trying to stifle competition, which is a terrible thing. It's not American. It's undemocratic, et cetera, et cetera. Competition is what America's all about, right? We're capitalists, for crying out loud, and a lot of entrepreneurs in the world in this room, right? So we're all keen on that. It's good. Let the best product win in the marketplace, the one that has the best support, the best clinical outcomes, and so on and so forth. So, but just cautionary tale number 1: be careful when you're playing around with some of the big companies. Now, they're all not created equal. I don't need to cast aspersions about every large company that's out there, but we all know who we're talking about. Oh, sorry. Okay. So, anyway, so here we are, we move on, okay? Um, Medtronic hasn't stopped harassing Exonics. They continue to harass us because they don't think that the deal with Boston Scientific is going to close. Okay, why? Because the United States Federal Trade Commission decided that they should make an inquiry. Okay. Normally you file, with Hart-Scott-Rodino, you make the filing and nothing happens, and your deal is cleared, not affirmatively, just nothing happens and your deal goes through. In this case, considering Boston Scientific has 40% market share in urology in America, the next nearest competitor has 7. Okay, they thought, we should look into this. I wonder what the bundling practices are of Boston Scientific. I wonder, all of a sudden now they're going to have sacral neuromodulation and a bulking agent to treat patients with stress urinary incontinence as well. How's that going to play out, right? Are they going to do something untoward that's going to somehow impact prices in the marketplace? All right, that was the fundamental theory. They don't need a theory of economic harm that they articulate. They just can investigate. Okay. So they've investigated it now, well, actively for maybe 6 months, and there's nothing there. Okay. There's just nothing there. And so thankfully, the FTC is putting their pencils down and our deal will close this month. Okay. So God bless America. Okay. Yeah. You know, and I don't have a lot of angst against the FTC. First of all, I know a lot. You want to talk about FTC, come see me. I'll tell you everything you want to know about that crazy shit. But but look, if you're trying to merge two grocery stores together in a particular geography, and you got Kroger and you got Albertsons, and that's who you can shop with, and they compete each other for milk and eggs and so on and so forth, and that roasted chicken that's in the back of the store for $4.99, thank you, Costco. Then you could see if they come together, and those are the ones that service in your area, the price of eggs and milk's going up. Okay, so they sued to block that deal, and they probably were correct to do so. Now, my next favorite one is the not luxury handbags, but the next level down from the luxury handbag, and they're involved in that. But in the end of the day, the FTC doesn't know the first thing about the medical device business. The FTC doesn't understand how prices are set. They don't understand anything about reimbursement. So you wind up, spending a lot of time educating these folks about how the basic things work. I mean, we don't get to set the prices. The prices are set by CMS. Okay, the CPT panel, right, et cetera, et cetera. They make these decisions. They set these prices. And we have to live within the confines of what the reimbursement is, right? That's just a fact. Okay. Sell product. If you want to sell it, people have to, the people on the provider side have to make some money. All right. So anyway, what other things can I tell you about? I'm going to go into this notion of capital, the importance of it, and then the notion of being a publicly traded company. A lot of folks think that if I go public, that's going to be the nirvana. That's how I'm going to be able to win the game. I'm going to be able to get access to a lot of capital. I'm going to be able to be successful and so on and so forth. But here's a quick thing, that just some numbers. So Inspire Medical, right? This is neurostimulation for obstructive sleep apnea, has a $6.1 billion market cap. Now, the GLP-1 scenario just screwed them up for a while in 2023, because everybody thought, oh my God, people are taking GLP-1s, they're going to lose weight, they're not going to have candidates, their market's going to turn to shit. Turns out, in the end, in a year and a half later, after everybody reacted, oh, there's more candidates now available for them. And so they've kind of regained their footing, and they're doing quite well, and they're generating probably right now about $600 million on an annualized revenue basis. So quite successful and a great market cap. But they've been successful, and they're increasing revenue and growing fast, and they have an unbelievably large market potential. Okay, and at the moment they have a monopoly. They're the only player. Right. All right. Exonics, great. $3.7 billion deal, $3.7 billion market cap. That's fantastic. Okay. I'll tell you why that makes sense and how we got there. But those are the two players that are out there in the market today, publicly traded, that have real super value, right? Great value. But let me give you a list of some others. Nixola, OSA wannabe competitor, $385 million. Now, they're on the Euronext and on the NASDAQ, which makes no sense at all, but that's their story. Nevro's down to $223 million market cap. Okay. Exonics could buy Nevro for half the cash we have on our balance sheet, for crying out loud. Okay, so that's a horrible story, right, about how that's ended and mistakes made there. Ecor, this is a VNS product for epilepsy, stroke, depression, 84 million, public company. And I'm talking market caps. This is the value of these companies. Stim, 36 million. A very interesting one, NRXS, I got to look up the actual name, 18 million. Neuropace, 212 million. Onward Medical, 241 million. They're on the Euronext. Mainstay Medical, I couldn't even find the damn. Okay, no wonder why. Okay, so they were so successful they had to basically go private. That was a destruction of their shareholder value, not an increase. Okay, so those are the public companies. There's a couple that died along the way, like Nuvectra. Okay, but that's a terrible list. So I just want to caution folks that that's not the answer to the equation necessarily, unless you've got a tiger by the tail and you're going to grow the revenue like crazy because you've got a huge a huge commercial footprint, and you're going to be able to light up the scoreboard. Okay. Institutional investors in America are not going to invest in something that's going from 5 million to 10 million and 10 million to 15 million. They're not going to do it. That's not exciting enough for them. They want big underserved markets, a huge TAM, and they want to see a commercial footprint that you're out there generating revenue like crazy and seeing your gross margin rise and so on and so forth. Okay, they'll wait years for profitability, not a problem. It's okay. You can invest money, you can do all kinds of stuff. They're very patient as long as you're growing. So if you don't have a tiger by the tail, maybe this is not the route you want to go, right? And you certainly are hard pressed to be going public before you have commercial sales, because now it's just a story and you got to pitch the story and okay, we got this milestone hit, we got this, we got that. So it's challenging. Okay, lots of private companies out there. You mentioned a whole bunch, James, this morning. I mean, we see them, right? In our space of overactive bladder, right? The patients who have incontinence. I mean, we've got all kinds of companies. We got Nuspera, we got Aviation, we got Valencia, we got Blue Wind, we got Stimulus. There's the whole list of companies that all want to go in this direction. Spinal cord stimulation, or let's just say treatment of pain, right? You got Nalu. Now the new one, Saluda, with closed loop. It'll be interesting if they're successful with their filing to go public. I bet you they will be able to go public because the investment bankers are so hungry to take companies out right now, right? I remember, just 3 months ago, somebody said, "Oh, Ray, there's not going to be any IPOs. The market's closed." I'm like, "Who the hell are you talking to?" All the institutional investors that I've been, trafficking with for the last 6 years, they're telling me they are hungry for names. They're hungry for small and medium size companies so that they can get in on that. So we're going to see a whole wave of companies. Cerebell was the first one to go public, and you're going to see lots of others. I know of at least 3 or 4 that have already got S1s that will be filed shortly, and so on and so forth. So, so once again, you got to be thoughtful about that. Let's go back to the beginning. If you don't have the capital, if you can't raise the capital, you're not going to be successful in this business. You can't rub nickels together and make a dime. It just doesn't work. Okay, there's another quote. And you need the money. Okay, so what comes first, chicken or egg, right? How do you get the money? Because you're going to need it. And this is a big money game. Let's put things in perspective. For Exonics, we raised $115 million in venture capital from March of 14 through March of 18. Okay. Now, there was a comment I heard about valuations, private valuations. What was our valuation when we raised 114 point something million? The answer was 115 million. Because as the CEO of the company, somebody who's been around a long time, I don't allow VCs to write up their investments on paper. Okay, that's another, so sorry, I shouldn't curse that much, but that's another bullshit thing that they do, okay? Like, why? You got capital in, that's your valuation. Okay? Simple as that. Keep it clean, you know? People looking at me like, wow, what the hell did you just say? You know? It's important. When you go public, what is the valuation of a medical device company going public? The answer is 350 to $400 million. It's in the back of the books on page 38. Okay, it's there. Hey, we only had 115 million when we went public. So we did a forward stock split to be able to fit into the $15 a share, you know, times X equals $350 million. So at the IPO, man, everybody got a 20%, you got free stock, 20% more free stock, including Dr. Jang over there and myself and others. Okay. Wow, that was really cool. I wasn't expecting that, but the math worked out because I didn't take money from folks who were not aligned in terms of philosophy. Okay. When you're working with a VC firm who wants to write up your investment because you got a milestone accomplished, well, shit, that's your job to get these milestones accomplished, right? That's the job. That's what you need to do to make the company valuable, to move it forward. And raising capital or needing more money is something you should be proud of because that means you made progress. Right, so it shouldn't be dilution. You know, dilution it's a concept that people get hung up on. When in reality, if you create real value, you don't have to worry about dilution. As long as the value is going up, why worry about dilution? A lot of founders get hung up on that. Okay, 100% of nothing is nothing. Okay, but I can tell you, 1 or 2% of 3.7 billion, you know, you can retire. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So don't, you know, you got to think about, you know, raising the money. How much money did we raise? 115 in venture capital. We did the IPO. We then raised $750 million from the public markets. The IPO, a secondary, I don't know what the hell you call the third shot on goal. I don't know what you call it, but, you know, additional follow-on offerings. That's a lot of money. Now, the good news is, of the 850 million that we raised, we had nearly $375 million left over. Okay. I mean, that's the cash we have on our balance sheet today. We had plenty of dough. Why? Where did all this money come? Why did I raise this money? Because if you remember during the pandemic, money was free. Right? Nobody could get a return on putting their money in the bank. You couldn't get 5%, you couldn't get 4% or whatever it is. You got zero. So there was money sloshing around. We were public. We were doing well. People were looking for places to place their bets. Okay, well, I'm an equal opportunity money taker when it comes to that, right? You know what I mean? So we raised the additional capital. You can make some arguments about, well, we shouldn't have done that or whatever. But once again, there was no dilution because the stock price was going up. So nobody was diluted. Nobody was unhappy. And we wound up with a war chest. Yeah, that war chest helped us a lot when it came to getting sued, you know, rather than having to defend ourselves against the largest, by the way, the largest medical device company on the planet, right? That's on my tombstone. That's what I want. Ray Cohen and his colleagues beat the largest medical device company on the planet. That's not a bad tombstone, right? And I did that all for you, by the way. That's my gift to all of you. Okay. Okay. Maybe take the arrogance and corporate greed down a notch. Anyway, so where am I? Where was I? What am I talking about? You got to raise the money, man. And the point is, if you're a first time CEO, you're an entrepreneur, it's your first time, find somebody who looks like, you know, with the gray hair, with the scars on their back, who can help you. Okay, get the mentor, get somebody to be your chairman, get somebody who's got some credibility, you know, out there with the venture capital community, ultimately with the public community. That's important. Okay. Right? You understand how that goes, right? Folks are reluctant to make a bet, you know, if it's your first go around. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but you know, everybody's got to get started, right? So that's a little piece of advice, right? So in any event, I could go on and on and on about all these different things, but I do want to give people an opportunity since you notice I don't do slides, I just like to chit chat. If you do have any questions at all, I'm really pleased to be able to answer. Let's go to you first.
So I'm curious about
Yeah.
the early stage.
Yes.
When you were getting through your clinical trials, like how much money did you actually spend on to get to FDA approval?
So we spent $115 million to get to ultimately to get to the approval, well, to get through the first two clinical studies, right? The CE mark and then the PMA study. And then we went public in October 31st, 2018, 1 year before we got approval from the FDA. But we had good enough data, right? You know what I mean? Like the pivotal study was fully enrolled. We had 3-month data. It was pretty clear that it was going to get approved. That wasn't really a concern. We were able to show the data. So that wasn't a problem. Now we did some things that were very unusual. Okay, we went public, and what was the use of proceeds? We're hiring 100 salespeople day one. Okay, I paid 100 salespeople $240,000 annualized, or $20,000 a month, to train during 2019. That was not the first time somebody told me I was crazy. But when we hit the ground, we had 100 salespeople out there selling the product, and we were able to take 20% market share in 3 months. Okay. So if you don't have the feet on the street and you don't have them trained and not ready to go, this is other bad VC advice. Well, let's just see how it goes. You know, why don't you just hire 20 people and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, it's going to go slow. Okay. And you're going to prove that adoption is hard when you have no people. Okay. So that answer your question directly? Okay. Let me know. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, sure. Jeff?
I have the microphone. I'm going to first.
All right.
You can be next.
Sure.
By the way, I heard you talk, I think it was at INS in Montreal, it must have been 7, 8 years ago. You had some non-flattering things to say about FDA and regulatory.
And I'm completely on the FDA. I'm on their side.
Yeah, things have changed. I just would be really interested to get your prognosis, not that you have a crystal ball or anything, but what do you think might be in store for us with the new leadership at CBRH, with a new administration coming in, with all kinds of changes? What do you see?
I've been so impressed by the FDA, and the FDA has started what they call experiential learning program. We were one of the first companies that they tapped. So listen to this one. The entire urology regulatory group, there were 12 of them. They spent a day with us. They saw products being manufactured, being tested. They literally saw, touched, felt things because they only see paper. So they're so interested and so curious about what are you actually doing and how do you do it? How do you do your testing? You know, et cetera, et cetera. How do you manufacture the products? So I give them like 10 gold stars for that program. Now, if you had to guess, do you think our relationship with FDA is pretty good? I'd say. I mean, we know them all first name basis, right? So the FDA can be very, very helpful. Don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't be afraid to do pre-subs. Don't be afraid. Whatever advice you're getting from a regulatory consultant, if it's contrary to what I just said, they're wrong. Okay, which is typical of a lot of consultants.
Sure, on someone everything that's in the today, and sharing his perspective of the really early days when in fact you were yes, it's about organization, and leadership.
Okay, so I would disagree with that statement that we were a pain company. It's true that we were looking at pain. We're also looking at vagus nerve stimulation for inflammation in the body. And that's how we kind of started the exploration. But before we did anything about markets, the first thing I did was I invited in patients who had devices in their bodies. If you had DBS, you had SCS, you had sacral neuromodulation, I didn't care. We just brought a whole bunch of patients in, and we started by asking them, what's it like to live with nerve stimulation in your body? How do you interface with your device? Show us your patient remote. How does that work? Do you know how to use it? Can you demonstrate that to us? Oh, you have a rechargeable device. Oh, cool. How do you recharge it? Show me your stuff. How does that work? How's that feel? Blah, 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 blah. So we just spent a whole bunch of time with a large group of patients who we paid some money to come in and chit chat with us. Okay, once again, agnostic, totally agnostic about clinical indications. Second thing, then we brought in physicians. We brought in electrophysiologists. Why? They have more experience implanting devices that have energy than any other group of physicians out there. We brought urologists, urogynecologists. We brought interventional anesthesiologists, i.e. pain docs, right? And then now having a take about what it's like from the patient standpoint, now I could have a conversation with these physicians and say, from your perspective, what is it that bugs you about the implant, the procedure, the process, the support? Tell us what would you do if you had to make a device from scratch? How would it work? What would it have? You know, I'll just give you one little silly little thing that one of the docs said. They said, you know, I'm annoyed when patients come from the East Coast to the West Coast, they show up in my office and I can't interrogate the device and figure out how it was programmed or when it was born or any of that. I'm like, oh, you want a flight recorder inside the IPG? They're like, oh, yeah, it would be great. Can you do that? Yeah, we have that. Okay. You know what I mean? There was like a million little teeny things that I was able to get as ideas from the patients and the providers, the implanters, okay? Then we did the business analysis. Okay, wait a minute, you know, this SCS thing's it really looks attractive, but there's three major players in the business, and then there's this company, Nevro, with some, you know, what I said at the time, some cockamamie high frequency thing. I don't know what the hell that's about. So who knows, right? What that's going to mean, or and so on and so forth. So we were like, that's crowded. There are a lot of competitors, big competitors. It's a big prize, but do I really want to be the fifth man in a four-man race? So that's all of you out there. Okay, you want to be the eighth person, you know, in a four-man race, you know, on and on. Okay. Okay, so that's what we did, Jeremy, and then we looked at prevalence, incidence, what that TAM is, how penetrated it was. What is the reimbursement? How many competitors are there? And as we looked around, it was like, oh man, it was like flashing. Sacral neuromodulation, Medtronic, $500 million in US sales with a monopoly, with a shit product, okay? Lasted 4 to 5 years in the body, wasn't MRI compatible. I mean, ridiculously difficult to use. No sense about how to program the patient or taking interoperative responses to figure out how to program that patient. I mean, just terrible. 23-year-old, well, at the time, whatever it was, 20-year-old technology. We thought, man, that's where we're going. Okay.
Post-second mutation, or was it?
No, once you find, you know, like I'm all about plan A, right? You know, once you figure out you're gonna go here, then, you know, you get geeked up about it, so.
We have time for a couple more questions.
But how about the one here?
Been really helpful. But CMS is notoriously less educated and slower. At what point do you start getting involved with CMS when you have a novel technology, and how much did lobbyists and work from that side play into your strategy?
Yeah, so look, I am, you know, I call that white space opportunities, right? And that was part of the answer, maybe the finish to Jeremy's question, is that I was pretty clean. I'm not going in a white space opportunity. I'm not, in other words, where there is no existing product, there is no reimbursement, because here's what happens. You know, even if you're successful with your studies and you get a category 3 code. And then you're in purgatory for 2 to 3 years before you get the category 1 code, right? So it's just a time-consuming process. I'm going to be as clear as I can. I've never had to do that, and I've purposely avoided it in my 43 years in this business.
Now you tell me.
Sorry, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It takes time, and you better have the capital resources necessary to survive during that period of time. And we've got 2 competitors to Exonics, wannabe competitors, Blue Rim Medical and Valencia Technologies, that'll be really interesting to see if they can survive by the time they get their category 1 code. You know, they're in Cat 3 purgatory right now, and if people can't get reimbursed for your product, they're not going to use your product. You know, you can give a bunch of shit away for a while, but eventually, you know, people got to get paid if you're going to get any kind of adoption for the technology.
I'm also aware for 20 years. In the early conversations with Medtronic, was there any chance to put a evaluation fee upfront of tens of millions of dollars, like to cover, to protect yourself in,
No, no way,
no?
no way. Nobody pays to take a look under the hood.
Because I've seen that happen, I've seen that happens in other cases in the cardiac world, where big companies to evaluate the technology,
Oh, man,
tens of millions of
I'd be
dollars.
curious to meet the person who's able to cut that deal. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that you gotta have some super really cool stuff to be able to pull that off. I mean, and you don't wanna, look, if some big company comes around and say, I love what you're doing, I really wanna buy it, well, okay, that's the business we're in, right? I mean, if you're an entrepreneur or CEO of an early stage company, your job is to make money for your shareholders. That's your job, right? And return on invested capital is what it's all about. So if you can get something sold more quickly while you're still in the technology phase, well, then great, people are gonna love you. They'll back you on your next deal. Because you made money for your partners. Sorry, that's a little Godfather quote, but anyway.
The question from the back here.
After all, we are capitalists.
Yeah.
My name is Benjamin. I'm from MCI.
Yeah.
And I just shared with you.
I heard of that company.
Yeah, well,
Would you like to put in a plug for you?
before that, there was the medical,
Oh,
and I had the same experience. The Medtronic people come over,
right,
invested some money, yes,
Yep.
about 4 million, I think.
okay, yeah,
At that time, we were doing a few years later, so I had the same, they tried to do the same device.
sure,
So I had the same experience with, implement guys.
Yeah.
Took all the knowledge and,
Yep.
tried to implement.
yeah, it happens. Medtronic's pretty good these days at not buying companies, but trying to figure out what you're up to. Right, as opposed to say Boston Scientific, who's, you know, like buying companies left and right. With integrity, by the way. Another,
And you mentioned you were soon retired, congratulations,
Yeah.
what's next for you?
I'm out of the CEO business. I'm 65 years old. I've been doing it for 43 years, not CEO for 43, but I've been in business 43 years. I'm just doing board service now and trying to help people provide the benefit of my advice. That's my plan. I understand.
So I guess the question is, when is the right time to start speaking to a company like Boston, knowing that there's the
Okay.
precautionary tale of
Right, well, that's a really good question. So look, we're Axonics in a completely different case, a different state. When we commercialized the product, and in the first year, by the way, in 2020, that was the pandemic year, we sold $111 million for the product. We have sold through June 30th of this year, $1 billion of the product. Okay, I'm very proud of that. I made some nice news site things and, you know, for everybody, you know, that's pretty cool. $1 billion, that's a lot of product to sell. Anyway, but when we went commercial, I'm done talking to strategics, if we can call them that. I'm done. I got no time for that. I'm trying to execute the business plan here and go out there and make raving fans of our customers. So in my mind, it was like, when we become profitable such that we are accretive to a larger player, right? They can buy you and it adds profitability to them. Then I bet you somebody's going to come knock on our door, and that's what happened. Okay. In other words, we had just become profitable, cash flow positive, profitable on a full net basis, not just adjusted EBITDA, and boom, next thing you know, here they are. And then they made us an offer we couldn't refuse. Okay, simple as that. No. You got to be pre-commercial. You got to be very careful. Now, I do have another saying. Write this one. Where's James? Write this one down. When's the best time to sell a company? Before you ship the first commercial product. Because the bloom is not off the rose yet. Most people just prove that adoption is hard because they didn't have the capitalization, they didn't have the guts to hire the big sales force, get the gunslingers that you're going to need to go out there and make an impact. So, you know, now, but I'm giving you kind of two ends of the story here, right? If you can get it all shaped up and put it on a silver platter for somebody and they're willing to pay you some money, then as long as it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times invested capital, man, those VCs on your board are gonna vote like super fast for that deal. So that's still, I still like that model, and that works, but you just gotta be careful about how you go about it. Another question?
Landon Ladd with Duke Neurosurgery. Congratulations on an amazing story, exit and retirement.
Thank you.
So having seen MedTech on the hardware and software side, what do you see as the next phase of evolution for sacral neuromodulation? Is it more on the software side, algorithms, better hardware, AI? What is your future?
So look, I don't know, right? I'll leave it up to Dr. Zhang and others to, fantasize about the future. Is closed loop applicable to sacral neuromodulation? I don't know. We got a really small nerve that we're trying to stimulate, so I'm not so sure it can be done, but it's interesting. I think that it's, remote programming is really important. You don't want to have people having to come back into the practice. If you can reprogram them on the fly, that we're doing that. That's new. So we're just kind of making the whole ecosystem easier for patients, for providers, providing enormous levels of support so that the physicians and their staff, in particular the staff, don't get hung up, right, with having to service these patients. This is the biggest problem. This is the biggest problem in spinal cord stimulation, is that the patients are a big pain in the ass, right? And they're not getting all the symptom relief that they want, and you're constantly trying to reprogram them. So you need to be able to, when you program a patient to begin with, man, that better be as close to perfect as you can get and send them on their way. And then have tools that if there is some finite adjustments that need to happen, then they can be made either automatically by the device or easily by the patient, okay? I could spend 2 hours just on that topic, but so I think here's the problem. Most people in America do not know that these advanced therapies for anything we're talking about exist. They don't know. So the future of sacral neuromodulation, it's direct to consumer advertising, because that's what we're doing. We spent $18 million last year, we spent $18.5 million this year, and we are bringing people out of the woodwork like, oh my God, I thought this was normal to leak because I had a child, or because I'm older, or whatever, whatever it is. And so you got to let people know about these things. And so we've been more about bringing people to the therapy and coming up with techniques, and national television advertising and Facebook and all that has turned out to be good.
Like your commercials, who's your ad agency?
Well, those commercials were actually written and produced internally in the company.
In-house.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
I mean, obviously, we don't have cameras and shit. We didn't go to Hollywood, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, we did, and those and actual patients. So we could. This is an actual patient. And
Sure.
pretty cool, pretty cool.
Ray, I'm gonna
You bet.
ask a question. It's a two-part question. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
All right.
And ask, as an observer of the neuromodulation industry, not counting Exonics,
Mhm.
what's the most positive development, the most exciting thing that you've witnessed in your years in the industry? And also, what's the biggest disappointment you've seen?
Boy, that's a really tough question. I'm not sure I want to answer it. I think there's a lot of promising stuff that's out there. I think the challenging areas are the ones you identified in terms of the brain interface. I mean, to me, that's a moonshot, but that's the brave new world. If we can help treat these patients who have depression,
Yep.
anxiety, Parkinson's, epilepsy. I mean, to me, there needs to be a renaissance in that area. I think we're moving in that direction. We created a renaissance in sacral neuromodulation, on and on and on. The promise of Saluda is very interesting. If closed loop can actually, prove to work in a meaningful way. I don't think that putting a can that is 40 cc's or 25 cc's in a person's body makes any sense at all. So some companies are all geeked up about software. They have lost track that you have to have an embodiment also that is attractive and is comfortable for people to wear and all those other things. So, that's the best I can do.
Well, Ray, I want to
Thanks so much.
thank you very much. Really,